Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining another webinar session of the African Hidden Champions. My name is Rashida Segosime. I'm a partner at Africa Foresight Group. And today we'll be having an amazing conversation with two representatives from the cohort of African Hidden Champions, Ian Fur, representing Sorbet Group, and Mahgoub representing Mahgoub Sons Group. Today, we're looking at two companies that have taken two different paths when it comes to achieving amazing success in African business landscape. Sorbet Group has over 220 stores in the beauty industries, which is very fragmented on the continent, and they've managed to collaborate and build a chain store that is known for its quality and customer care. And on the other hand, you have Mahgoub Sons Group, a leader in the agricultural industry in Sudan, that covers every part of the value chain of agriculture and has a deep history that goes as far back as 1954. So I'd like for the panelists to quickly introduce themselves, just to say a quick hello for now, because we'll come back to you. And so let's start with Francisca, who are representing the steering committee, to tell us a little bit about the African Hidden Champions Group. Thank you, Francisca. Hello, Francisca. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I had a, okay. Good afternoon, Francisca Hollmann is my name. I'm working for DEG and I'm responsible for corporate debt financing for Africa. And I'm one of the members of the steering committee of this African Hidden Champions initiative. Very happy to have you here this afternoon to join us on this webinar, and welcome to the next 60 minutes.
Thank you. Ian?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ian Fur. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I'm here to speak about a business that I founded in 2005 and sold ultimately in 2017. And after we had developed a large chain of beauty salons across South Africa, I look forward to sharing some of my thoughts and experiences with you today.
Thank you. Mahgoub is not yet here. We're trying to get him to join us as quickly as possible, and I'm sure they have so many amazing things to share about the growth of their company. Well, while we wait for him, Francisca, maybe we could talk a little bit about the initiative of the African Hidden Champions and how we've proceeded with this cohort.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, what is a hidden champion? A hidden champion, just to remind us all, is a market leader who offers unique products of niche markets and usually has a low public visibility. So Africa is a home to a rising number of hidden champions. We know this concept from Europe, in particular from Germany. But despite Africa's status as a promising emerging market, such African companies do not enjoy much visibility. So most of the African economies are relatively small and not very well integrated, and include financing markets which lack of transparency. So we see, as this initiative, we see a huge potential in Africa with young, ambitious, fast-growing population, but also economic sector, and in particular, the private sector. But we also feel that Africa needs to be a bit more active and publish success stories. For the companies, the visibility is vital because it provides better access to international financing, can attract foreign investors, it facilitates market entrance and fosters internationalization. So it even can, higher visibility, it even can encourage potential new customers, and of course, increase a network. And last but not least, also while companies can get access to know-how and to expertise. The joint initiative by DG and Africa Foresight Group seeks exactly to close the gap between visibility and the existence on the ground. And how are we doing it? We select companies, and then we publish, well, first of all, we elaborate and we publish case studies about such businesses. And we also want to award the best case studies at the end of one cycle. In DG's view, we are very happy to partner with Africa Foresight, which is the perfect partner for this initiative. It's a young, highly professional, very well-connected network and a real hidden champion in the consulting business. The African Hidden Champion Initiative will hopefully also encourage other people and other entrepreneurs to strive for leadership. So now the case study concept, which we choose together with Africa Foresight, is much more than just a success story. Entrepreneurs share their experience and challenges and explain and let us a little bit know how they managed also critical phases and situations. Every 2 to 3 months, the team of African Foresight Group presents a list of companies to the steering committee. That's how we work in this initiative. Members of the steering committee are experienced high-level representatives from international finance institutions, PE funds, and Oxford University. So in this round, we selected 2 companies, and they were selected from a long list and a short list of companies which fulfill, first of all, the criteria of the initiative. And you can find the criteria on our webpage, which is called africanhiddenchampions.com. So Africa Foresight Group then prepares the case study together with the entrepreneurs and with some guidance from the steering committee. In this second round of Hidden Champions, we're very proud and happy to invite and to talk today with Dr. Mahgoub from Mahgoub Sons Group and with Ian Furr from Sorbet Group. We found both business stories very appealing and convincing for various reasons. They're highly professional management in difficult environment. Both are very innovative and have a convincing strategy to develop and professionalize their respective markets. You will see that and hear that the markets are quite different. So first of all, congratulations to both, and thank you, Dr. Mahgoub, for presenting Mahgoub Sons Group, and to Ian Furr, the founder of Sorbet Group. Happy to talk to you and hear from your experience.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for selecting us and inviting us today.
Thank you very much, and hope that we can go further together.
Yeah. Thank you, Francesca Holman, and thank you, Dr. Mahgoub, for joining. I wonder if you could quickly introduce yourself to the group before we continue, because we're not able to do so earlier.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to speak today. My name is Wajdi Mirghani Mahgoub. I am the CEO for Mahgoub Group, graduated from Ain Shams University and Baccalaureate of Science, and I joined the family business and working in various activities. And so looking forward today to participate in your discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to go into the discussion phase, starting with Mr. Ian Furr. When we talk about Sorbet Group, it's very well known in South Africa. I remember when we presented the case to the team and our South African colleagues were so excited. It's become a company that is associated with strong value for customer relationship. You can almost say the customer is king. And many tie this to the organizational culture of the place, where there is a sense of purpose and camaraderie and it's all about making sure the customer is as happy as possible. So I have a question. We can lead with this question about the strong organizational culture. Many will say that a strong organizational culture could have a potential psychological impact on your workers, because you're coercing people to think in a particular way. It's a bit excessive, but some will say that, and it probably discourages members of your team from individuality, and this could somehow impact innovation. Is this something you saw when you were still at Sorbet, and how can organizations prevent that from happening while trying to build a strong organizational culture?
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting question. It's not something that I've come across much before, this view that a strong culture would inhibit people or coerce them. I've always felt it was very important to have alignment rather than coercion. I don't think we should be coercing anybody, but I would like to have everybody aligned with the purpose of the business. Everyone should know why the business exists in the first place, what is its purpose. And for Sorbet, we had a situation where our purpose was to touch people's lives and to make them feel good about themselves. So when somebody comes to a beauty salon, it's not just for the treatment or the product, to make them feel good, and they want to leave the salon feeling better than when they arrived. And if they look good, they feel good. So we were always trying to convince everybody in our organization that we were selling a feeling as opposed to a product or a treatment. And that feeling was to be, to look good and to feel good about themselves. So we call it alignment rather than coercion. And of course, the other thing was that everybody should come to work for the same reason, and that is to serve. We always, I used to run induction training for every single person that came through the organization. Over 3,000 people went through my induction training program. And the first thing that I always used to ask them is, what is the purpose of work? Why do you come to work? Most people would say, I come to work to make money. I come to work to earn a living, to make a salary, to feed my family, to survive, to grow. And those were all, the answers were always about me. I want to do this. I want to earn money. I want to improve my life. I. And we call those people I specialists, essentially. They were the I specialists. So they were the ones who came to take rather than to give. And so we convinced them, hopefully, that you don't come to work to make money. You come to work to serve the needs and wants of your customers. And if you do that well, the money will always follow. And so we always had to put service before reward. And those were the two basic elements of our culture, and obviously the core values that supported that. So the whole idea was to get everybody in the organization to firstly have a very strong sense of belonging, and secondly, to be aligned on the purpose, the reason that the business exists, the core values of the group, and the reason that we come to work every day. So that was the main function in terms of trying to build a strong culture, was to get everybody on the same page. Because in most companies, the management comes to make profit. That's their focus. They want to make profits, they want to increase productivity. The staff come to earn a salary. Now, if you look at those two things, there's an inherent conflict of interest. Because if you pay more salaries, you make less profit, and vice versa. So we said, no, we don't want to have this us and them barrier. We don't want people to be coming to work for different reasons. We want everyone to come to work to serve the needs and wants of people and the needs and wants of our customers. And that was really the main focus behind the building of the culture.
Yeah, thank you. You said something, there's conflict of interest between what the employees want and what the manager of the business wants. One wants to maximize profit, the other wants to earn money. But you also said, if you serve your customers well, the money will follow. Now, when it comes to organizational culture, it's often the last thing on people's minds because the benefit is not easily quantifiable. Now, how did you think about prioritizing something like organizational culture, and what are the approaches you use to measure the impact of having a strong culture on your company and helping you to still maximize profits, assuming that was one of your main goals, or at least keeping the company profitable and financially viable?
Right. So the first thing to understand is, of course, the profits are important in a business. You do need to make profit. You do need to sustain the business going forward. But the principle really is that we must recognize that service comes before profit and before reward. So the profit is the result of what you do. It's the reward for what you've done. It's never the purpose of why you're doing it. Because why you're doing it is to meet the needs of your customers. That's why you're in business. Meet the needs of your customers. And when you do that well, then the profits will always be there. It's when you're not meeting the needs of your customers that you won't be able to make your profit. So essentially what we say, when people ask me, all my clients now, because I run the Hatch Institute, which is a coaching and consulting business, helping other companies with their culture, they always ask, how does culture impact on the bottom line? They want to know this because they can't measure it. They want to know, how does this work? Because if you're always talking about culture, I want to know how it's going to help me make money. And I say, it's not about how much the culture impacts on the bottom line. As far as I'm concerned, culture is the bottom. Without the culture, without a strong culture, you will never be able to meet the needs of your customers, because people won't be focused. They won't be focused on your customers. They will be focused on the internal issues and the problems, and they turn their backs on the customers while they're busy fighting for whatever they want to get out of the business. And so once you lose your focus on the customers, your profits will be elusive. So we need to understand that if you don't have a strong culture, it's very difficult to make money, especially in my experience in South Africa, where we have a very diverse workforce. We have a racially polarized environment, and there's lots of issues that are going on in this country at the moment. And we need to understand the impact of what's happening outside the business on the culture itself. So we need to then try and measure the culture, and we don't have scientific measurements because it's very difficult to measure attitude. You can measure numbers, you can measure everything, but very difficult to measure attitude. And attitude is what makes the difference. If you had to ask me, how was Sorbet so successful, and why did we manage to build a large chain of salons right across the country, over 220 of them, it would be because of the attitude of our people towards service. That was it. The other companies, our competitors, they could copy our products, they could copy the treatments, they could copy the pricing, they could copy the look and feel of the salons, they could copy virtually everything, but they could never copy our culture, and they could never copy the attitudes of our people. And that became our competitive advantage, was the attitude. And so that's how we used to measure our culture, was because of the success of the business, and of course the feedback from our guests. We call them guests, not customers or clients. The feedback from our guests was always positive, and the business was growing, and that was a great reflection on the culture that we had created.
Yeah. And for a company that has not previously thought of culture as a forefront of something they had to focus on, how would you say they go about thinking about building an organizational culture that is strong and supports the growth of a business?
I think the first thing is to put people before profit. When you put profit before people, then people just become a cost burden in the organization. They just become cost burdens. They're not assets. So if you want to really build a culture, you must put your people first. They must be the assets. When you look at an income statement, a business income statement, you'll see there that salaries and people are under the expense column. Somewhere located in between rent and stationery. And that basically says that there's not much difference between a person and a pencil or a stapler, because they're all just costs. And so we cannot motivate people or inspire people if they are seen as a cost burden as opposed to an asset in the business. So put people first, and you'll be able to start building a culture where every single person, regardless of their background, their history, their race group, their culture, their religion, their political views, they all have a sense of belonging. That's what we want to do in business. We want to have people have a sense of belonging where they feel accepted and respected and trusted, and that their contribution is valued, and that they're treated with fairness and dignity, especially in South Africa, where we have a very, very horrible racial history. So everybody needs to be treated with respect and tolerance and acceptance. And so once you can have that, you can then start to build that common purpose where everybody comes for the same reason. Everyone feels comfortable within the organization, and it's conducive to great customer service, because we're not focused on each other anymore. We're starting to focus more on the customer. And that's really what people need to understand, is focus on your people, and then your business will follow and grow the way you want it.
So cultureneering framework is something you've become very strongly aligned to, and you talk about the organizational culture of Sorbet becoming its competitive advantage.
Yes.
Through your times, the ups and downs, economic ups and downs at the Sorbet Group, did you see your culture see you through and help you to build resilience into your business? And if so, how did this happen? And what were your observations?
Right. So the word cultureneering is a word that we created ourselves. It doesn't, you won't find it in the Oxford Dictionary, and it means, the definition of cultureneering is to create a strong culture in a diverse workforce that lays the platform for obsessive customer service. That's what it means. And it has a whole lot of different elements to it. And one of the key elements is the fact that you first have to understand, when you want to build a culture, you need to understand the socio-political environment in which you are operating. Because what happens outside of the organization has a huge impact on its people and what happens inside in terms of its culture. So the leadership of the organization has to be very aware, especially in terms of race, gender, all the diversity issues that have created such huge problems in South Africa. If you're not aware of those, then you'll never be able to address the issues that you face in the workplace, where people come from different backgrounds, coming to the workplace. It's the only place where they meet on a regular basis, and there's a lot of mixing of race groups in the workplace. And if you get that right and you start to understand how we got to these problems in the first place, you can address that. So we need to address all the socio-political issues. We need to have our purpose, our values, and our reason for being in place. And then there's a number of elements that we do. One is personal development. So the leadership must go through an element of personal development, because it's no good trying to build a culture and transform a culture if you cannot even transform yourself. So if you come into an organization and you have all these prejudices and biases and whatever else, how can you then go and build a culture around that? So you need to first look at yourself, demonstrate your own ability to change, and then you can then look at becoming a leader of people. And we call that culture-driven leadership. It's a special name as well, which is a leader that focuses on building the business through its culture. And we call it earning the moral authority to lead. moral authority to lead, because most businesses use the power-based authority. I'm your boss, I'm sitting higher up on the hierarchy than you are, therefore you must listen to me, and I will teach you what to do and tell you what to do, and I will suppress you from the top. The culture-driven leaders, the exact opposite. They nurture people from the bottom, and they earn the right, the moral authority to lead. They earn that, and they earn the trust and respect of their people, and they show genuine concern for the well-being of their individual employees. They show a commitment to their growth and development, and very importantly, they create a place of safety in the organization where people can feel free to speak up without fear. So those are the kind of things that a culture-driven leader needs to have. And then the last pillar there is the community building aspect of culture. And that's the relationship development across all the different groups, the diverse groups in the organization, building trust, building respect, acceptance and tolerance of people who are different to you. And then through that, creating a sense of belonging for everyone. And then from that comes the common purpose, the ultimate common purpose, which is to serve. And then with that, you lay the platform for fantastic customer service. And that's pretty much the framework that we used at Sorbet, and we now call it cultureneering.
Thank you. I have one more question around policies and regulation, because you talk a lot about managing diversity, given the complexities of different societies. I think many African countries have one or more issues, social issues affecting the population and the people that come into your workplace. I don't know how much this can be addressed on this platform, but to what extent do policy and regulation have a role to play in making that journey easier for business owners and management as you focus on building a great environment for your people to thrive through building your organizational culture?
Okay, right. So South Africa, I don't have to tell you, South Africa has got a very unique history because of the enormous element of social injustice that we've endured for the last 300 years, essentially, plus all the problems we're having now with our new government as well, who unfortunately have missed the opportunity to redress the imbalances of the past. So the whole idea is that government was wanting to redress, and the principles were right, and Nelson Mandela came in and he had this rainbow nation theory where everybody would come together and work together and become one country. We had one South Africa, but we didn't have one group of South Africans. That was the difference. We were all different. We came from a different past. So the government tried to redress this by creating Black economic empowerment, which was a legal structure to give Black people the opportunity to become employed, and giving them preference when the situation required that type of preference. Now, the principle of that was 100% right, and I agree with it completely. Because when you have such inequality, you cannot just ignore it and hope that it's going to come right by itself. You have to do something to make sure that it happens. Unfortunately, because of the enormous corruption of our current government, all the money that was aimed at uplifting people and putting proper education into place was stolen through corruption. And so we've had massive problems with that. And as a result, we have now even more inequality than we had before. 70% of the youth in South Africa are currently unemployed. 70% of all the youth are unemployed. And about 50% of the total population is unemployed. So we've got this massive gap, this inequality of gap in income between the haves and the have-nots. And the government should have done something more constructive to help us uplift people and to make it the level and the playing field more level, right? and to create equal opportunities for everybody. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And so we have to really rely on businesses to do the right thing and to create and to push that Black economic empowerment, which is what we're trying to do all the time, is to create that equality so that one day, somehow, South Africa will be a society where everyone has equal opportunities and access to the economy, which has not happened to date, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ian, for I think we've taken a lot out of this, so much to learn. I think one of the things that jumped out at me was the moral authority to lead. I don't think many people ask themselves those questions. Do I have the moral authority to lead? And also what the consequence of not having a strong organizational culture is when you're not putting your people first. So thank you very much for your time. Okay, so everyone, that was Ian Fur from Sorbet Group. Now we're going to be moving on to Dr. Mahgoub for Mahgoub Sons Group. Thank you, Dr. Mahgoub, for making the time this afternoon to meet with this group of amazing people. We're very glad to have you here, and we have a few questions for you just to understand your leadership process and the great mind behind such a successful company. My first question is around labor migration. I think most part of Africa is observing a massive brain drain at the moment, where our best people are seeking opportunities abroad. And I just wanted to know from your viewpoint, how have you been able to, is this something you see in your business, and how do you address it to harness the best talent for your company?
Okay, thank you. Well, in Sudan, we suffer two types of migration. The first one is the brain migration. This covers the graduate and the postgraduate people. And the reason is because of the low income and the unavailability of the service like the health care and the education. So these are the reasons behind their migration. The second type is the rural urban migration, and this covers the labor they are seeking for employment in the main cities, and they work there very marginal. And in Sudan, we suffer from the unavailability of the labor over the agricultural areas. Again, they are suffering from the unavailability of the service, etc., and the low income they have at their areas. The group addressed this for the first type. We are giving good packages. We are giving support in healthcare. We are giving support with the education. And also we are giving chance on training, etc. On the other type, the labor, we believe that also we are addressing it through more than one route. The first one, we are working on mechanizing all the operations, especially in the farm, where we are minimizing the needs for the labor. So almost our operation is starting from planting to spraying to the harvest. It is all fully mechanized. Even the transport and to the last destinations of all our crops is fully mechanized. So we are using very limited labor in that direction. On the other hand, also we are making farming contracts where we are working win-win situation. We are financing the farmers with all the inputs, and we are buying the crops So through which the farmers are making a good income. Almost in our coverage, we are covering 180,000 farmers with their family. Almost we are doing 900,000, including their families. On the other side, the group also making social contribution, and we are focusing on the health care, we are focusing on the education, and all the areas we are working, we have noticed very significant improvement in the social economy status of this area. I believe the last effort that we are doing is establishing an technical institute with a research center, and we believe with this we will be raising the skills of all the technicians, and as well as we will give the chance for the graduate and postgraduate to do their research, and definitely all this becomes attractive, so the people stay with the group and within the country. But still, these issues has to be addressed by the government by increasing the income and giving more chances for the work with the good pay, as well as making the other services, the health and education, achievable for all the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the same for many countries across Africa, prioritizing education and giving more opportunities for people to stay. So MSG has pretty much conquered Sudan, and I was wondering how you're thinking about capturing opportunities of the entire, or at least more of the Middle East and Sahara region, and how are you thinking about expanding opportunities in the MENA region?
Well, this is a very good question. As you know, Sudan is enjoying huge resources vis-a-vis the land, the water, and also the animal wealth. We are enjoying over 100 million heads of different types of animal. The diversification of the climate and the soil between dry in the north and rich savanna into the south, we can produce various crops, including wheat, including maize, soya, oil seeds, cotton. You can see the diversification that Sudan can do. As well as same times, as you well aware that the food security becomes an issue in all this region, whether it is MENA or Sahel or COMESA. There is more than one regional economical forum, which includes a number of African countries. And same time, the group is specialized in food production and food processing. And we believe that within this surrounding countries, we and economical committees around us, we can play a big role in the supply, especially this is our prime business and specialty. And the other thing is the Sudan location. You know, it is surrounded by 7 countries, and all the supply can be done inland, which is really contribute very much to the cost of the final destination. And further, I think there is bilateral agreements with most of these African countries. Yes, some of them are not active, but still, if we activate them, we could be a very good source of supply. As well as we believe that there is a chances in all these countries, or some of them, to move our food processing to this location, and we can do outsourcing for the supply to Sudan at a better and competitive level of cost. The chances to do from Sudan and to Sudan, I believe it is great, especially with the increasing demand for the food. Sudan can play a big role, and as well as our group definitely will participate with a great effort. If you look to the growth in this area, average growth minimum 4 to 7%, and I believe this could be the rate of expected growth in the coming 5 years, or maybe more or less.
Yeah. You talked about the surrounding countries and the role Sudan plays, and you spoke of food. One of the issues we cannot ignore is climate change. We know Africa already bears the brunt of the effect of climate change, but in this last few months especially, we are starting to see more radical changes around the world, especially in Europe and North America, Canada's fires and floods in Germany and other places. But we also know that Africa feels the impact of climate change. As someone, as a leader in the agriculture sector, how do you think about the impact of climate change on your business and how to mitigate against some of these impacts on your business?
Well, we are watching and seeing and noticing all these changes for the last maybe 6-7 years.
Yeah.
The pattern of the rainfall goes from very high to short, and anyhow, I think on our side, we are trying to do some sort of projects for water catching projects, so that if we had any effect of shortage in the rainfall, we will be using the catched water in reservoirs. This is from one side. From the other side, as you know, this environmental, it has to be done on a long term. Sudan is implementing forestry law for minimum area. 10% of your land should be planted with trees. And although there is no really very close monitoring on that, but still our company is sticking to have this percentage planted, as well as we are trying to help our neighbors and the small farmers to have the percentage kept, as it will have its effect definitely when it is fully covered all the area. As well as we are watching very much that in our future projects to be following all the environmental friendly policies, as well as that we are trying to minimize our chemical use, and also to make sure that they are safely disposed. On the projects, we are trying to use soil conservative techniques like zero tillage. There is no disturbing for the soil, and as I mentioned, that also water catching projects. So this all our efforts, but still, as I mentioned, unless it becomes governmental policies, it will not have the general effect on the whole area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we talk about Sudan and maybe even Africa on a wider scale, do you think we are ready for any radical changes in climate change that may affect our food supply?
Well, I believe still Africa is not really touched very much on the environmental, but definitely we are affected with the whole weather changes. We need to adopt policies that to be on ground, as I mentioned for you, that we need to be ready for any type of shortage of water, that we had built some sort of reserve. We need to go for forestation again, and we need also to use technology in order that what area we have, we need to maximize the productivity and use very light maturity types, so we can grow in a short time of rainy season. And definitely all these environmental affecting elements, we need to put strong rules and laws, and also to follow the implementation of them.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mahgoub, Mahgoub Sons Group has seen a lot of success over the years. Like I said earlier, you have played across the entire value chain of the agriculture sector. What do you say to people who will say you run a risk of spreading yourself thin and maybe risk losing strategic focus on how to grow sustainably?
You know, by nature, for a farmer, he's very cautious on stepping and stretching.
Yeah.
But the group actually did in the first quarter established a strategy and development department that aims to prevent this issue, as well as align the future plans in the group division. They are currently undergoing in preparing 10 years strategy, keeping in mind development and solidifying current projects, and not establishing projects that are currently out of our current 7 divisions that we have. Also, we are going into transformation into holding company and divisions. This all will help us to get rid of the activities that not in line with our main core of business, as well as that in the future, if we have any new projects, that will definitely be in line with what we are having our strategy. And anyhow, this is how we will be looking forward to take our group further for any investment, whether it is in Sudan or outside Sudan.
Yeah, I think this is great. And it's always good to have a strategic focus and a group of people dedicated to that. Sky's your limit.
Sure.
Yeah. One more question. To what extent is access to finance still a barrier or problem that businesses face in Sudan, especially when it comes to financing capital-intensive projects?
Well, still, as you know, we were suffering from embargo for a long time. Sudan was under sanctions for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And in that direction, all the development finance or project finance were not available. Recently, Sudan is being lifted out of the terrorist list, and this allowed them to come into mix with the international institutions. Now they resumed the relation with the World Bank, with IMF, and most of the big banks, they started to resume their relation with Sudan. And also Sudan recently being qualified for HIPIC, which will make a debit release for a great portion of our debits. I believe this will allow the international institutions and commercial banks to come back to provide finance for definitely the international institutions will go for the governmental type, and we hope that the rest of the financial institutions, banks will look into the private sector, because the business at the end is run by the private sector, and the opportunities in Sudan is a lot, especially if we had the chance to have funds for the infrastructure. Definitely will give the private sector more chance. So our group had a lot of projects waiting for finance, including our added value for the cotton, for the meat processing, and also further investing in the increasing the productivity, developing new area. So we had a number of projects. We hope that we can find a way to finance it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. That was a very enlightening session, telling us more about your business and the business landscape in Sudan. Now we're going to open up the question and answer session to the attendees. If anyone has a question, please paste it in the group chat and we'll read it out to members of the panelists to answer. Oh, we have questions already. There's one here. It says, Dr. Mahgoub, I think this one is for you. It says, were there any challenges or opportunities during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of internal food supply in Sudan? And what role did MSG play, or was MSG able to play a role, sorry?
Yes, I believe during the COVID time, as you know, everything was shutting down, and we had big challenges because our business is seasonal. We cannot delay it if you have the rainfall. So we had really to work under very hard circumstances at that time. We managed to operate, and the good enough that the government allowed all the production area to be exempted from any some sort of curfews or whatsoever was adopted at that time. And I believe as a result, we managed to have good crops, and including all the food and the oil seeds, they were available. And luckily enough, I think it gave us a chance to focus more and to do proper management. This definitely gave us a chance to continue. The agribusiness is business has to continue. There is no chance for you to stop here or there. And we were very happy because we managed to give jobs for all these farmers, or to help them to secure the finance and the inputs, and also up to the harvest, and we bought from them the crops. So this, I think, we're part of the group achievement in the last 2 years.
Thank you. Okay. There is another question, and I think Ian or Dr. Mahgoub, you can answer this. It says, what painful experiences did you turn into an advantage in your journey to building your business? I see Ian Fur is smiling. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I can answer that because there are lots of painful experiences that you have as an entrepreneur. When we started the Sorbet business, I was hoping to franchise it in the early days. So I thought the plan was to open maybe 3 or 4 company-owned salons and then start franchising them. But unfortunately, that didn't work out at all. It took us 4.5 years before we were able to sell our first franchise, which meant that we had to open 22 company stores before we franchised our first business. So that was a very painful experience. And unfortunately, because I was an old man trying to be in the beauty business, nobody took me seriously, especially the banks. And so I had to find the money myself to keep pumping into the business. And for the first 4.5 years, we only broke even after 4.5 years. So it was just pumping money in. But I learned one thing, that as an entrepreneur, there's some very important characteristics that you need. One is you cannot be afraid to fail. If you're afraid of failure, you'll never do any of the things that you need to be doing, because you won't be bold enough to do something different. Then the other thing is that you need to use your intuition. Intuition is the ability to know that something is right, even though you don't have the evidence to prove it. And so nobody had ever built a beauty salon chain in South Africa, and I had to go and do that. And the reason why nobody ever builds beauty salon chains is you cannot get a consistent level of service across the chain. And so that was our biggest challenge. So the painful part was having to open all these company-owned stores and put all the money in, and then to learn. But it was the third part of entrepreneurship that perhaps saw me through was courage. And the fourth one is determination. We were determined that if we kept building the brand, we would be able to finally start selling franchises. And that happened in around 2009. And then from then we started to sell. And then we sold all of our company stores to franchisees. And so we didn't have a single company-owned store after that. And it turned around significantly.
Thank you. There's another question that either of you could answer. It talks about, how do you survive in an environment with unfriendly policies?
Would the doctor like to go?
Dr. Mahgoub?
Yeah, is this question for me?
It's for either of you, and Mr. Fur has nominated you to go for this one.
This is the question for him, I think. More suits him more.
Okay, I mean, if you'll just repeat the question, please, Rashida.
What do you do when your business sustainability is threatened by unfriendly government policies?
Yeah, okay, well, we don't have unfriendly government policies, we just have an unfriendly government, which is the problem in South Africa. It's a government that is much more focused on enriching themselves than about building the country. So that makes it very difficult. So essentially what it means at the end of the day is that you can't rely on the government. You have to do it yourself. You have to make the changes. South Africa requires every person in the country to have a moral obligation to uplift the people of this country, because the government has failed quite badly in that respect, which is a great pity. So we have to take it upon ourselves to make the difference and to shift the paradigms and to change the mindsets of the people and give them some hope. At the moment, there's a lot of hopelessness in South Africa. There's been all kinds of trouble here lately. And there's a sense of hopelessness, and the government is not helping that process at all. So it's up to us as individual businesses to try and do something to uplift the people.
Thank you.
Yes, I also can give you my point of view. Definitely, if you take our case in Sudan, we are in the production sector, and if we have any unfriendly policies, definitely this will delay the progress and the development. Therefore, I believe we should have been taken on the decision making, because we are the people in the field. We are the people who are actually having the practical side of the farming and the processing. So our experience or our advices comes from the field. We are the people who had the experience. Sudan economy is agricultural economy, and the way out for Sudan only to reform the agricultural practice and to add value for the different products that we have. So in a summary, that companies like an organization like ourselves should be taken into policy making rather than to be confronted.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Mahgoub, there's a question for you about the contract farming model you're currently adopting at your company with farmers. If you could tell us more about it.
Well, we have developed this contract farming especially to cover the irrigated area because most of the irrigated areas are suffering from the unavailability of the finance and inputs. So the model that we are doing, we are providing the farmers with the finance, with the inputs up to the harvest. And at the end of the operation, we are buying back the crop. So far, we are covering 2 crops, cotton and soya. And it is going very successful because we see that the income of the farmers is increasing and they are benefiting. And also, they are recording high yields per faddan. And the area is increasing year by year. I think this is the right relationship between the private sector and the farmers, where all the potential that possible to be utilized, while the farmer is enjoying the ownership of his land, and he is also enjoying boosting his productivity.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's it.
I see there's a question here. I'm not sure if you saw this one. From Richard Ogu. It says, how rewarding and sustainable has the concept of cultureneering been? What effect did it have on staff turnover? And are the staff truly responsive in a positive way to grow the bottom line? The concept of cultureneering was extremely rewarding. That's how we managed to grow the business. So we reduced our staff turnover from about 40%, because the beauty industry has got a very high staff turnover in there's always movement around. And when we started out, we had a staff turnover of up to 40%. In other words, 4 out of every 10 of our staff would leave during the course of 1 year. And then through the process of cultureneering and building a culture, that came down to somewhere between 5 and 10% by the time that I left the business. So it's very rewarding, and the bottom line figures improved dramatically, so much so that we were able to sell the company to a listed entity in 2017. And that's when I left. I spent a year there and then left there. So cultureneering definitely works, there's no question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Francisca Holman, I don't know if you have any last words for the group. I think we've answered the questions from the participants and attendees, and it's been an amazing session.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Rashida, for the good moderation and for collecting and moderating the questions. But a special thanks to Ian Furr and Dr. Mahgoub for participating, for sharing some of your experiences, and for just let us participate in your journey, in your success journey, which is really very, very encouraging. And I mean, both of your stories are very different environment, different business, and different challenges. But very, very good growth stories and success stories to learn and to get encouraged to take risks, to use opportunities, and also to find new ways and innovative, different ways to run the business. I think this was really amazing insights, and again, thank you very much for being with us. And well, I'm sure we will hear from you and be in touch and follow up and hear many more how about your development, and in particular regarding Sudan. It's a great story to see how this country develops, and we are happy to, well, hopefully come closer and get in touch very soon. Thank you very much again, and wish you all a wonderful afternoon, evening.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Francisca and Rashida, and nice to meet you, Dr. Wagdi. It's been a pleasure to be involved here with this, and thank you for your questions. They were very challenging but interesting questions. Good.
Thank you everybody, and I was very pleased to participate in this discussion, and looking forward to have mutual real business in the future, inshallah.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, once again, for the informative and insightful session. Have a good afternoon and evening. Thank you to our attendees for participating. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. Bye-bye.